I think an actor still aspires to be aspirational because I've been told as well that that's what makes you a star.
Is there a part of you that rebels against it and says, why should I do what I've been told? Why can't I go to the airport in just my jeans and a t-shirt and not worry about how I'm clicked? Because that is how most people are.
I mean, yeah, I guess I do.
Yeah, I'm not trying to say this is wrong or right. I'm just trying to explore this
But
thing.
it's a very interesting thought, and I think it's something that we as young actors have been trying to figure out for ourselves as well. I think the one thing that's worked the best for me is to just do whatever I feel like. I mean, I've walked in and out of the airport, sometimes in my pajamas with a pillow in my hand. The last interview I did with you, I came from the mandir with like 1 hour of sleep and no hair and makeup. But then there are times where I feel the chatter gets too much. Like, oh, you're not looking like an actor, you're not acting like an actor. And then you're like, okay, maybe I should make more of an effort. Maybe people will look at me a certain way. But I really, at my core, I'm a firm believer that it all really comes down to how people see you on the big screen or now on their screen at home.
So you're saying part of it rests on the audience as well.
I think all of it does.
Okay.
And I think that the part that they see of this persona on social media has a lot to do with how they perceive the actor and the personality, and not so much, I don't know what difference that makes to how they actually it does. You know, there's a very interesting thing that I read from Kevin Spacey once. But now, given the context, the less that the audiences know about you, the easier it is for them to believe whatever character you give them
Sure.
on screen. I never had the luxury of that because ever since I was a kid, I guess everyone knew everything about me, and they were judging everything that I do or don't do anyway. So I don't know if I'm well equipped enough to answer this question because I haven't figured it out for myself. There are days where I'm like, I don't really care. I'm a normal girl. I want to do what I feel like doing. And there are days where the chatter of like people won't take you seriously unless you take yourself seriously and give yourself that value of being someone. And then those days I'm like, okay, maybe I need to rethink everything.
Right.
But yeah.
But you're not really a normal girl, Janvi. I mean, you know what I mean, right? It's like you just said so yourself, in the sense that you've always grown up under a microscope. That's not the way most people grow up.
It isn't, but I don't think anyone looks at their own life and says, yeah, I'm generic, like I'm part of a flock. Like there's
Right.
something about each and every person that makes them unique and individual. And this is my reality. I think there are a lot the number of people that can relate to my reality are very less. Therefore, sometimes I feel the empathy, the sympathy, and the ability to gauge things from my perspective are very slim. But yeah, like I think everyone has their own unique.
So let's step out. You're stepping out of your own skin and you're evaluating yourself as an actor. Let's now you know what it is to be the reality of Janvi, right? As in famous parents, this kind of upbringing, always been surrounded by noise, chatter, criticism, a lot of it. So when you see a performance of yours, are you kinder to it than maybe others?
No, I'm meaner.
You're meaner.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think, and I did a 10-day extensive workshop with, I don't know if you know about Mr. Atul Mongia.
Yeah.
Uh, and what a lot of it was like therapy. And I guess what I figured out from those sessions, and I guess I always kind of knew as well, that the burden of my privilege and my baggage has weighed so heavily on me that I guess every actor kind of has an imposter syndrome. But I think for me it seems a lot more intense because even if like 10 people say something good and one person says something bad, I negate the other people. I'm like, yeah, that must be because of my mom, that must be because of my dad, that must be because I obviously don't deserve everything that I've gotten. I obviously like I'm a worthless piece of shit. So yeah, it's hard to gauge my performance from a neutral point of view. I think I'm much harsher
How do
with
you
it.
how do you improve then? Because if you're not able to see your mistakes or evaluate them, how do you say, okay, this is what I did right, this is what I did wrong. So next movie I'm going to.
I think it takes a minute. I think the first time I see myself, I'm like, oh my God, like I should just like leave and die. But then eventually, I guess the film lover in me starts seeing my work a little more objectively. And and I think just my love for the craft and for what I'm doing takes over. And then it's just about, okay, this is where I am, this is what I need to do. This seems like constructive criticism. This seems like my inner demons and their voices and whatever. And then I try to segregate. But it's very hard to get a neutral perspective. Like I know after Bawal, just in terms of performance, I guess this is the most positive response my performance has ever gotten. But the one critique that I've realized and that I've observed for myself as well is that I need to work on my voice modulation. And I used to think that it was diction, but I don't think it's diction. I think it's that more often than not, I've played back-footed characters, for the lack of a better word. Even Nisha in the first half was quite WE.
Yeah.
So my voice is also
Yeah.
daba hua. Like
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't
Yeah.
open my mouth too much while talking. I eat up some of my words, and I wonder if that's a character thing. And it's a very easy crutch for me to go to vulnerability. So I've identified these things, and I know that I need to work on it. I need to, the pace of my speaking. There's a slight lethargy that again I use as a crutch to feel or depict vulnerability. These things I've identified that I know I need to work on. I started some classes yesterday and looking up exercises, and so it's.
So this workshop that you did with Atul Mongia, that what was that? Was that an acting workshop or?
Yes, it was. It was for this film that I'm doing called Ulaj.
Ulaj, yeah, okay. So it's kind of to kind of change some of what you're doing and do it a little differently.
Well, I did Atul Sir's workshops for ghost stories, but that was very brief. That was like, I think, 3 sessions. And I've always kind of, um, I'm not method at all with
Right.
my acting. I'm quite switch on, switch off, even with the emotional scenes. So I just wanted to experiment. My director really believes in Atul Sir's school of acting, and finding your character through those workshops. And I just like, I'm a curious learner. I like to call myself an artist, and it just seemed like an interesting process. I wanted to give myself to it and see what comes out of it.
Can you give me an example of like something that you did in that workshop that helped you in your performance?
You know what I find, that when you're on a film set, it's usually the third or fourth day that you find the character.
The rhythm or whatever.
Yeah, the rhythm, and you're like, okay, that's maybe who she is. But because you spend so much time in these workshops doing the scenes or talking about the scenes that aren't even in the script. Suppose the script is, okay, I go, I get fired from my job, and then the next day I'm at another job interview. And so what he'll make you do is what happens when your character goes back home and
Yeah,
what
the
they feel.
in
So
between stuff.
exactly. So you create an emotional bank and a history for your character, which I think more than anything gives you a lot of confidence as an actor when you're on set. You almost feel like you know the character better than anyone else, which is a great feeling to have. And also with him, I identified that this my go-to emotion was always vulnerable. I can like cry relatively easily and things like that. I feel very easily moved by things. And so us working together was more about how do we take that out of your system, take that out of this character's equation. She doesn't use vulnerability and all as a crutch at all. She's harsh on herself in a completely different way. So what that person would feel like, how her go-to impulse would be maybe anger and not, I'm sad.
Right. So you just spoke about breaking down a script. Are you a person that listens to narrations or do you read scripts?
I prefer reading scripts, but sometimes directors prefer narrating,
Okay.
in which case you have to respect their wish as well. But I prefer reading.
Right. So when you're reading a script, let's say, or when you're getting a narration, let's say you do you argue with directors? Do you say, but my character would not do this, or like, why is she doing that, or why? I mean, what is happening here? I'm not able to get this point of A to B that she's doing. Do things like that?
Yeah, I do, but more, honestly, before I didn't have much confidence to do that. I would just be like, okay, everyone here knows much more than I do. I should just shut up and like do whatever. But specifically with Ola, narrations I've had with Sharan Sharma, who was the director of Gunjan, they were far more collaborative experiences for me, where I was able to tell them what I felt would maybe like feel more organic. And of course there'll always be a debate about it, but more Olaj than anything else. I
Right.
feel like we made the character.
together.
Yeah, a little bit. I hope that doesn't sound arrogant,
No,
but
no, it's
yeah.
not. It's the way many actors work. So, like one instance that I was curious about is Nisha and Bawal. There is this question that arises about why is this, because the voiceover says that before marriage she was happy, she was independent, she was all these things, but she's also got this crippling.
Medical condition.
Right, but it's the feeling about the more than the condition itself, the way she kind of is scared about it, right? That so after marriage, there is one line that you say that when your mother tells you that just get a divorce, it's okay, come back if this marriage is not working out, and you use this word umid, hope, that you have some hope that this is going to work out. So, did you ask Nitish why does this character harbor that hope? What is it about her that, because this man is treating her really badly,
Yeah, objectively, like horrendously.
horrendously. So, like, they don't sleep together. Forget sleeping together. I mean, he won't even sleep on the corner of a bed or something. He's just like, okay, this is sleep on the ground or floor, whatever. They don't. So, what is it that gives this woman the hope that this is going to work out or this may work out?
I think having confidence and projecting confidence are two different things. And from what I gathered with my experience with Nisha, I mean, of course, just to understand her, drew parallels with my life. I've been, if today I was in an equation like she was, I would leave like in one
You mean a
second.
relationship kind of a
Yeah,
thing? Okay, right.
in a relationship, or honestly, any equation where I was belittled like that. But there was a point in my life where I wouldn't have had the courage to walk away. Even though my history before that was of a confident, vivacious
Right.
girl. And I find that that happens, that even though your opinion of your condition isn't at the forefront of your being, the history of it, if things in your external environment trigger you in a certain way, your history in relation to your condition comes at the forefront. I don't know I don't know if I'm being clear, but you can get past certain things in your life. But if your external environment reminds you of the trauma that you dealt with initially, it can take you back to square one
Right.
a little bit. So I think what happened with Nisha is that her parents gave her a lot of confidence. She didn't feel like her epilepsy was something that was holding her back, but it was a part of her life. And there would have been certain instances in her life where, not everyone was open minded about what that condition means. Or socially how to treat her. And I'm sure this wasn't her first marriage proposal. Me and Nitesh sir spoke about how she's had many before, and her having epilepsy came in the way of those proposals turning into anything. So I think that baggage, even though wasn't defining every choice she makes, when now she's found herself in an equation where her husband is reminding her every day that it is the reason for her not to be accepted, you go kind of into a
You
cocoon.
shrink,
You
yeah.
shrink a
Right.
little bit. And your vivaciousness, your confidence, you can forget in a second.
Right.
And then more often than not, you feel like you don't even have the confidence to be like, well, screw you, I'm leaving. Because that's very aspirational. And I wish and I hope that even through the course of maybe seeing Nisha, that's where most girls arrive. But it's easier said than done. More often than not, you're taught to be on the back foot with things like that.
Yeah, and also I think the place matters because she's a small town girl. Traditional families, they work slightly differently.
Yeah, and I think we mentioned it in the film. She's never had a romantic relationship before, and I think the fear of not having one ever kind of makes her feel like, okay, maybe there's hope, maybe he'll come around, maybe like something will happen.
Right.
And I think she says it as well. It takes 1 second to just get up and leave because of your
Right.
self-respect, but it takes a lot more to stay. And more often than not, maybe you shouldn't stay if it's about your self-respect. But Nisha wasn't at that point where she could be courageous enough to take that call.
Right. Right.